I have too many tips and rulings you'll need to know to play or beat this deck, so today starts a string of 5 tip videos on Unchained, starting with the twins and how they interact with the other cards in the deck and the format. This will be followed by future videos on the spells and traps of the deck, another on the main deck souls and other common monsters played in the deck like Tour Guide, Vice King, and Rhino Warrior. There will be another on the extra deck monsters, and the last one will be on combos, tech cards, and strategy targeted to be played in or against the deck. There are 3 Unchained triplets called the Unchained Twins: Aruha, Rakea, and Sarama. They all have the following effect. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect other than by the effect of a monster with this card's name, you can special summon any Unchained monster from your hand or deck except for an Unchained monster with the same name, which is one of the ways to unbrick yourself from drawing Disaster or Shyama, which have no way to summon themselves from the hand. Here are some things to remember regarding the twins' floating effects. First, they cannot be used if destroyed in the hand. Secondly, if you want to use their floating effects, do not use their second effects to destroy another copy of themselves, as it will not trigger the effect. Do not use Aruha in hand to pop an Aruha on field. Do not use Rakea to pop another Rakea or itself. Do not use Sarama to set a different Unchained card and then pop itself. There may be scenarios where you would do these plays, such as triggering the effects of Yama in the graveyard or an Abominable in hand to special summon, or for a cool combo using Nibiru, which I'll talk about later in this video. But in most scenarios you are throwing away value when you do, so try to pop something else with their second effects, which I'll cover next. Also, it's worth knowing that all of the twins can use their floating effects in the damage step because they can be triggered when destroyed by battle. This means you can ignore both Ash and Callby on their floating effects by using them in the damage step, because neither of those cards negate activations, making them unable to be used in the damage step. You can do this by crashing them into bigger monsters, or off of the effects of Yama or Abomination's effect when summoned in the damage step. 2 of the twins' non-floating effects have fiend locks when they resolve, so if these effects are negated you won't be locked. In most cases, the lock does not matter, as other than a few monsters in the extra deck such as a Zeus or an access code talker. But most of your monsters are fiends, and both of these effects are important for triggering all types of floating effects, including the other twins: the spells, prison and wailing, the trap cards, escape and chamber, the links, rage, anguish, abominable, abomination, and Yama that you'll probably use more often than them anyway. The only twin effects that lock you into fiends are the in-hand effect of Aruha to destroy a card on the field to summon itself, and the on-field quick effect of Rakea to pop a card you control. If the card Aruha target should leave the field before it resolves, you still get fiend lock, but you will not special summon Aruha. If the card Rakea targets leaves the field before it resolves, you'll still get fiend locked. Sarama has no fiend lock on either effect. Its effect is to target any other named Unchained card in the graveyard and set it, then destroy a card you control which doesn't target. It might not have been clear to you that the second effect of Sarama is susceptible to Ghost Bell. If you target a monster with this effect, setting a monster with Sarama is technically a special summon face down, and it also counts towards the Nibiru limit as well as summon limit. Also worth noting, Sarama cannot use its effect to set Abomination's prison because it isn't an Unchained card. Its name does not include the word Unchained. One last thing about the twins: they'll generally be your normal summon, and you'll use either Aruha or Sharvara to start your combo, in which case consider setting the twin to play around Warning on Judgment on the summon. If they have their summon negated, they won't get their floating effects, as they've never technically been on the field. This also lowers your summon count with respect to Nibiru, as a set is not included on Nibiru, only normal or special summons. It also doesn't count flip summons. I just want to thank my patrons Grie Velorn, lala-la-land, and Aurelius for their support. Link below if you want to learn more about the Patreon, but now let's talk about OTKs. 3. Rakea plus another twin into an open board is enough to inflict 8,000 damage to end a game, and you can often get there by resolving Aruha on a set spell or trap card. Rakea and Aruha or Sarama can attack for 3,000, then Rakea can pop Sarama, which can then summon Abominable, which adds another 3,000 damage, which can then use its effect to destroy Rakea, which can then summon either Sharvara or Shyama for the final 2,000 damage. In some cases you could also summon Disaster with enough attack, or trigger Yama in addition to or instead of Abominable for the last of the damage, and you could also pop a set card instead to maintain board presence. The twins can be used to link summon for Yama on their own because they're all fiends, but on their own you cannot summon Rage or Anguish because they both require an Unchained soul, so you may need to find a way to float into one of the main deck Unchained souls to make your way up to Rage or Anguish, or you can go into Yama as a stepping stone to make Rage or Anguish. They also cannot go straight into Abomination because it requires a link monster, which none of them are. Rakea has a combo with Nibiru that would allow you to keep it in hand for another future turn, similar to the Labyrinth Nibiru Furniture combo. If you control Rakea and have Nib in hand, you can allow your opponent to summon 5 times, then activate Nib and chain Rakea to destroy any card, even itself, to fiend lock yourself. Nib will tribute the board, and because you cannot summon a rock, it will stay in the hand. And no token will be summoned either, because first it requires Nib to be summoned. But regardless, the Primal Being token is a rock, and we're still fiend locked. This play works because before you're fiend locked, the activation of Nibiru was legal. Then after Rakea resolves, you'll be fiend locked, and if a card was legally activated, you must attempt to resolve it as much as possible with respect to its problem-solving card text. And the first part, to tribute all face-up monsters, can be resolved without summoning Nibiru because it's part of its, and if you do conjunction. Nibiru and how to play around it in this deck is the most commonly asked question that I've seen regarding this deck, and it will be covered as another video in this series. So click here to learn more about the other main deck monsters in the Unchained deck.